So yeah, let me start by saying that exercise is really, really important for a type 1 diabetic. Obviously, it's important for everybody, but it's more important if you're a type 1 diabetic because of the fact that you're kind of battling something which damages, the fabric of your body all the time. So, it's important for a whole number of reasons. It's partly kind of, just circulation and making sure that, blood is pumping around your body and reaching every bit of it. That's a really key thing. Weight management, far from something that I find easy, that is for sure. But trying to maintain a healthy weight is important, and obviously, exercise does play a role in that, an important role. And I think most importantly, maybe because being a good type 1 diabetic is about maintaining motivation. You being motivated to look after all aspects of your health is part and parcel of that. And so, if you can manage to kind of have a good exercise habit, you're doing something really, really positive for your overall relationship with your own well-being. So what exercise do I do? Well, the short answer is it's glib. I was going to say not enough. That's probably not true, actually, because I do exercise most days. I gave up team sport a long time ago, in the very early period of being a diabetic, in my early 20s. And that now, message for anyone young out there, is one of my big regrets. I really wish I hadn't. I think there are a huge amount of benefits to being involved in team sport. And I didn't feel able to carry on with it when I was diagnosed, and I think that was a real shame, actually. In the fullness of time, I wish I still did stuff. But for me, exercise is a very kind of individual and personal thing. I do a lot of walking. I love swimming. I find both of those things kind of very manageable from the perspective of pacing myself and being able to do things on my own terms. So I walk most days for a pretty decent distance. Typically I kind of factor in an hour of walking a day, and I think that really helps me generally overall. My key challenge for exercise is all to do with hypos. I find it quite hard to do an hour of exercise without having a hypo. An hour of brisk walking will take me from being at a kind of the top of a normal range, around a 10, say, in terms of blood glucose measurements, and an hour will take me right down to the kind of under 4 zone. And that is really troublesome. There's a level of unpredictability about it, and it just is hugely disruptive, whatever exercise you're doing. So I find that really hard. It affects my motivation. And the other part of it is that because exercise and weight are so kind of correlated, I find it hugely frustrating that doing exercise necessitates that I also eat something. And that's either kind of corrective sugar, or it's a biscuit or a slice of bread in advance of the exercise. And that just it just screws with my head, frankly. How do hypos affect me? So obviously there is the fact of having a hypo, and that's an experience which is not feeling brilliant, feeling shaky, feeling unable to do hard exercise. Certainly, I mean, I can continue to kind of walk slowly when I'm recovering from a hypo, but I'm really not exerting myself at all at that point. So there's a kind of, there's a period of time, there's a 5-10 minute period while I resolve the problem, which is seriously impactful. But also there's a kind of prep period, when you're thinking about when you're going to exercise, you're thinking about when the best time is, and you're thinking about making sure that you've had something to eat, or in my case, that I've had something to eat before I do the exercise. So there's lots of things to kind of factor in. And then there's afterwards, thinking about, how your blood sugars are going to perform after you've done the exercise, because there will be an impact and you're likely to go down over the next kind of 2-3 hours at a faster rate and to a lower level than you would typically do. So, I think the hypo factor is a really significant one that is sometimes underlooked. So what have I found really helpful? I find it really helpful to have supportive people around me. So people who are, prepared to go for a walk with me and who will help me out when, I have to sit down for 10 minutes. They are great friends to have. So that's been pretty important. And also, I think there are some amazing resources around these days. I haven't done it, but people rave about Couch to 5K. And the things I use Adrienne's yoga, and I do a Joe Wicks as often as I can. He is super fab, as we all know. So those are really brilliant, and there's loads more stuff out there as well. My worst diabetic exercise experience was when I was first learning to scuba dive. And by the way, I no longer scuba dive, so it was bad. And the fear of having a hypo while down there completely screwed with my head. And it didn't go well at all. So that's definitely the worst thing. It's in the book if you're interested. Top tips. So there's the obvious stuff, which is, to make sure that you have checked your blood sugars before you go out and do some exercise. And, you probably, if you're going to do, more than a half an hour, you're probably going to need a little bit of a carb boost beforehand, a biscuit, a banana, something like that. And, really, never exercise away from a sugar source. You should always carry sugar with you. So those are basic points, but they're probably worth saying. I think for me, the biggest tip I would have is to try and do a little bit of exercise very often. Again, when I was younger, I used to kind of think of exercise as being quite a big thing that I needed to fit into my life and like dedicate an evening to it or whatever. And that just it's very impractical, very difficult to achieve, and habit is a really important thing. So making sure that you go out every day and have a half an hour walk, I think that's one of the things that I would say has helped me.